Dear. Order. Around 10 members have indicated a wish to speak or intervene in this debate, which is unusual in a 30-minute slot. To make a speech in this debate, a backbencher must have the leave of the member in charge, Ms. Kirk-Smith. Yeah. A backbencher... To make a speech in this debate, a backbencher must have the leave of the member in charge and of the minister. Yes. Right. And obviously there needs to be time enough. If you wish to make a speech as opposed to intervene and have secured the necessary permissions, please stand as usual when the member in charge has finished moving the motion and remain on your feet while I assess demand and the need for a time limit. I'm expecting a 2-minute limit, which is likely to be needed, and I request that other members seek to intervene very, very briefly and only during the mover's and minister's speech. I will call the minister to reply at 11:20. Laura Kirk-Smith to move the motion.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship, Ms Furness. I'm so glad to have secured this debate on maternal mental health, which I know really matters to people in my constituency and across the country, and yet it's still too easily overlooked. But for me, it's also very personal. In 2021, I lost one of my best and most brilliant friends, Sophie, to suicide. She left behind her wonderful husband and 3 little girls, aged 6, 3, and just 10 weeks at the time. Her death was an awful shock to us all, and I'll never forget the moment I received the message from her husband. I don't know how to say this, he said, and I can't believe I'm writing this, but Sophie died this morning. It was still the COVID pandemic at the time. Sophie was very isolated, recovering from a C-section, staying at home, trying to protect herself and her baby from COVID and not wanting visitors. But we were in regular touch on WhatsApp, helping each other to navigate life with a little baby and 2 older siblings. Sophie was getting more and more concerned about her baby's feeding, and it was causing her to suffer from increasingly bad insomnia. She took herself to A&E with concerns about the baby's milk intake, which I suspect were more a reflection of her own anxiety than the baby's feeding. And she spent a night there before being discharged. I don't know whether they asked her about her own mental health. What I do know is that the next day her messages were increasingly distressed, and 2 days later she took her own life. Unfortunately, what Sophie went through is not uncommon. At least 1 in 5 people who give birth experience a mental health problem during pregnancy or after birth. In fact, while we hear a fair amount about physical conditions like gestational diabetes and preeclampsia, it's mental ill health that's the most common complication of pregnancy in the UK. Briefly.
Honourable Lady, the fact that so many people here is an indication of the importance of it. Does the Honourable Lady not agree that support is an essential component of maternal health, and that for those families who have not extended support charities, for example in my constituency like Home Start, who have volunteers to go and help, are essential and should be more widely funded to help more young mothers who feel they are drowning to get a lifeline back to service?
Thank you, and I do agree with the honourable member that support is needed. I will get on to that. The causes of these mental health challenges are really varied. Some people will have past experiences of mental health problems or difficult childhood experiences. Some will struggle after a traumatic birth. Some will be experiencing stressful living conditions. Some evidence suggests there are biological or hormonal factors. And some people are at higher risk than others. Young mums face particular risks, with postnatal depression up to twice as prevalent in teenage mothers compared to those aged 20 or over. And data suggests that postnatal depression and anxiety are also 13% higher in black and other ethnic minority mothers than in white mothers. People's experiences of mental health are also really varied, ranging from mild to moderate conditions like low self-esteem, anxiety and depression, to more serious conditions, including PTSD and postpartum psychosis. And while most people find a way through, perinatal mental health can be incredibly serious, as it was for Sophie. I will.
What is a very important issue to this House in regards to that perinatal support. Does the member agree that it's very important that we have those professional teams in place, but also that additional value that will come from a specific physical mother and baby unit where that specialist support can be given not just to the mother but to the child but the family as well?
I do agree. Mother and baby units are vital, and I thank my honourable friend for his the honourable member for his intervention. For women in the period from 6 weeks after giving birth to 1 year after giving birth, the leading cause of death is suicide. And while I want to speak more widely today, I want it to be. I want us to be very conscious of that extreme end of the risks that women face. And despite the potential seriousness, the stigma around these problems is huge. 70% of women will hide or underplay maternal mental health difficulties, and in turn they won't ever get the support that they need.
I thank my honourable friend for bravely sharing the devastating story of her friend. I also have a wonderful friend, Sarah, whose daughter was a month old when the COVID lockdown hit, and she was so worried about breaking lockdown rules that she didn't lean on friends and family and ended up having a mental breakdown herself. Will my friend agree with me that maternal mental health should be a high priority in any future emergency planning?
Thank you. I absolutely will, and I'm sorry to hear of my honourable friend's own experiences too. What are the consequences of all this? We've started to hear, and the human suffering is immense. But maternal mental health has economic consequences and costs too. An estimated 8.1 billion each year in the UK, according to research from the London School of Economics. And nearly 3/4 of that cost relates to adverse impacts on the child rather than the mother. I want to suggest 4 ways in which maternal health support can be improved, and I'll be as brief as I can. The first is improving specialist perinatal mental health services. The second is better embedding mental health support in routine maternity care. The third is improving community support. And the fourth is education and awareness raising. And I do want to acknowledge that new dads...
Thank you for making a powerful speech, and I'm so sorry to hear about your friend. Would you also agree with me that we need specialist support for those experiencing post-adoptive depression, which is, whilst you haven't gone through the same physical process as birth parents, can be equally as devastating?
Absolutely. I thank my honourable friend for the intervention, and I do agree that that's one way in which people can experience really severe mental health challenges and consequences, and it does need to be considered. I do also want to acknowledge that new dads and partners experience mental health challenges too, but given our limited time, I'm focusing today just on maternal mental health. Yes.
Thank you. Does my honourable friend agree with me that stigma around mental health, and particularly around maternal mental health, can be used by abusers as a barrier to women getting help? Domestic violence during the perinatal period and the effects on mental health require widespread attention so that survivors can feel comfortable and safe when asking for support.
I do agree, thank you, and we do need to shed more light on this precisely for that, among other reasons. First, I'll touch briefly on specialist perinatal mental health services, and my first recommendation, which is to ensure that these are protected. In the last 10 years, there have been significant steps forward. Mother and baby units in particular can be an important part of someone's treatment and recovery, as well as having significant benefits for the parent-infant relationship. But tragically, there are still too many stories of women not being able to access them. They're perhaps too far away from where a woman lives, or there isn't a bed available, or the need for a mother to get that care hasn't been identified properly. And we're still seeing mothers with newborns being put into adult psychiatric units and separated from their babies, despite the national guidance saying that mother and baby units are best practice. Again, we have... So continued support for these services is crucial both in these mother and baby units and in the community. And the support must also include research to develop the best interventions and robust evaluations of the care provided. The Mental Health Bill is a sorely needed piece of legislation, and I really welcome it. But regarding psychiatric units, I wonder whether the bill might include a provision to ensure that all women who have given birth within the 12 months prior to admission are given the option of being admitted to a ward where they can remain with their baby. And this could help women fall through the cracks in the system as they do currently. Second, I'll turn to routine maternity care, which is where mental health support for the vast majority of women can and should sit. And again, we've seen progress with some vital new services in place, including care for women experiencing baby loss, severe fear of childbirth, birth trauma, and loss of custody at birth. I will.
And also for calling this debate that's clearly so important to her. In my constituency, there's an excellent charity called Heart Talks, which works with mothers who've experienced baby loss. Would the member agree with me that postpartum checkups are really important for all women, but particularly those who've suffered baby loss, regardless of the trimester it's occurred in?
I would absolutely agree. Thank you. A recent report from the Maternal Mental Health Alliance has highlighted huge variation in the support services available locally, with confusing referral pathways, inequitable referral criteria, and some long waiting lists. Some women have to wait 6 months for assessment and up to a year for treatment. And too often, as I've noted, women are cared for unequally. Those that have existing those that have existing disadvantages experience stubbornly poorer outcomes. So we need better integration of mental health into all routine contacts during pregnancy and after birth for all women who need it. During that period, women have an average of at least 16 routine contacts with health professionals, including GPs, midwives and others. And this is an ideal opportunity to ensure that women are routinely and compassionately asked about their mental health. I wonder if any healthcare professionals asked Sophie not just how the baby was, but how she was. I wonder if the discussions about her baby's feeding were had in a way that sought to reduce her anxiety. And I wonder if she was given less attention because this was her third child and her experiences earlier had been smoother. But I will never know. But in the same way that many physical health complications are dealt with by multidisciplinary maternity services, the same should be true for mental health care. So this means midwives, health visitors, others trained to ask the right questions and assess the risks, and then psychological therapists, equivalent to those employed in talking therapies, integrated into maternity teams to support women's care where necessary. They would understand the specific needs and risks of the perinatal period and be able to intervene quickly where that's needed. Third, I want to acknowledge the importance, and we've heard from other honourable members, the importance of community support for pregnant and new mums, and I'd like to recommend its expansion. There are fantastic voluntary groups providing some support, and in some places family hubs, family support hubs are up and running. But often the postcode lottery kicks in again, and we're a long way from the broader and more reliable provision that was established under the last Labour government, notably the Sure Start model, which all the long-term evidence shows was so effective. As part of our national health mission to shift care from hospital to the community, we need to rebuild these community services, including for pregnant and new mums. We need them across the country and widely accessible, with clear maternal mental health guidance embedded in them. And finally, fourth and finally, it's incumbent on all of us to keep building a society where everyone understands the mental health challenges in the perinatal period, including the suicide risk in the most serious cases. And crucially, we all need to learn to be good allies to people who are struggling. I think about this a lot in relation to Sophie. When Sophie sent me messages saying, feeling desperate today, and I'm just not sure I have it in me to keep going, did I do enough? Did I worry about her anxiety? Yes. Did I worry about her being depressed? Yes. Did I worry about suicidal thoughts? Honestly, yes. But did I think she might take her own life? No. And I've struggled with the guilt that I didn't somehow do something to stop it, but I also recognise how ignorant I was and how hard this is. I've had good conversations with Sophie's dad about what needs to change. He's part of a group called Facing the Future, a support group for people who have lost family to suicide. One of his group members said, I think what I'd like to see is a more proactive and visible campaign to target those who are at risk, not just for those at risk, but for their families, friends, carers, loved ones, to let people know it's okay not to be okay, and to give them the confidence to ask someone that they're concerned about how they're feeling, where they can go to look for help. And I think this is absolutely right. There are some fantastic charities and campaigns out there, and I know the government is listening. I'm particularly pleased that not just mental health, but suicide prevention is woven into our health mission, where moving from treatment to prevention is such an important focus more broadly. But there is more to do. I will wrap up, Chair, but I want to conclude by saying that I don't want Sophie's life to be defined by her death. I want it to be defined by her first-class Cambridge degree and her talents as a writer and actress and her Foreign Office career, her friendships, her playful sense of humour, the beautiful family that she began to raise. But I talk about her death because I hope her experience can be a catalyst for change. Because while her story and every story and the wider statistics can seem bleak, the real story here is one of hope and potential. Because with the right support in place at this crucial, pressured time in women's lives, they do surmount great mental health challenges and recover, often quickly and well, and their babies get off to a good start in life. The government's embarked on transformative work to improve the country's health. Better maternal mental health outcomes must be one test of our success. Thank you.
The question is that this House has considered maternal mental health.
Can you rise if you want to speak?
Can you just come and stand up if you're going to put in to speak, so we need to get your names down. Yeah, you've got a very short amount of time here. So we'll go first of all to Danny Chambers.
Thank you for calling me to speak, Chair. It is a pleasure to serve under your chairmanship, and I'd like to commend the member for Aylesbury for securing this hugely important debate and speaking so eloquently about her friend And as someone who has lost a close friend to suicide, I completely agree that you need to talk about them in the that they're not defined by their death, and about the impact they had during their life and the impact they had on other people as well. Suicide is the leading cause of death of women 6 weeks to 12 months after giving birth. And maternal mental health in Winchester and across the UK is in crisis. And as Lib Dem spokesperson for mental health, this is something I'm getting more and more stories about from individual women. Every year, 600,000 women give birth, and 1 in 5 of those women will experience a perinatal mental health condition. This is a completely neglected mental health crisis on an extremely large scale. Now, polling from as recently as December 2024, commissioned by the campaign Delivering Better, who I'm really pleased are here today in the room with us, found that 7 out of 10 women who have a negative birthing experience say it has a long-term impact on their mental health. One recurring theme is that women are not being listened to. This has been a recurring theme in essentially every major maternity inquiry. Women are not listened to when they raise concerns pre, during and post-labour. They aren't listened to when they raise complaints of trusts about their care, and they aren't listened to by successive governments who have failed to treat this issue with the seriousness it demands. Far greater emphasis needs to be placed on the voices and experience of women and birthing people if this crisis is to be meaningfully addressed.
For giving way, and I thank the member for this very important debate. Does the honourable member agree with me that given the scale of this problem and the barriers to people asking for help as new parents and new mothers, it's important that this government focuses on preemptive support in case people are struggling with their mental health, and assuming that actually having a child will affect your mental health, and in that assumption and would force the government to take a proactive approach to support women in this time.
I completely agree with you. Thank you for that very important intervention. And for years we've been calling for better community health care, but proactive health care. We know demographics who are at high risk of mental health, not only women who are within a year of giving birth, but a whole load of other people like military veterans, there's farmers, there's groups of people who we know need proactive help before they reach crisis point. And it is more cost effective to treat them earlier rather than pick up the pieces once they are in a crisis. The government has recently announced that it's going to drop women's health targets to avoid overspending. I think it is clear that women's health, including maternity care, has been deprioritised for too long, and I'd urge them to reconsider this. Thank you.
Michelle Welsh.
Thank you for this debate today. With regards to your friend, Sophie, I am so sorry. Maternity services in this country are in a dire state. This has been exacerbated in Nottinghamshire with the fact that we have the largest maternity scandal in NHS history. So we have seen this firsthand, where women have suffered with some of the worst care and treatment imaginable, and in many, if not most cases, were left with little or no support. The support was lacking and sparse. I had a traumatic pregnancy and a traumatic birth. My son was born in the first week of the first lockdown. Despite having an emergency C-section due to not being listened to, I was sent home in less than 24 hours. I was left alone, and I was left abandoned by the health services. The mental health and the situation that I face, it doesn't go away. It never leaves you. But I am one of those lucky ones. And so I wish to say not much more other than that the truth is maternal health provision will only be fixed when we fix our maternity services. And our maternity services start by supporting women before they're even pregnant. And so, in order for us to get to the point where women don't go home feeling like they've done something wrong, that their situation is all their fault, that they're useless
and they're not capable of being a mother. We have to fix what is going on in our system with regards to how we care for women and how we care for babies. Thank you.
Ruth Entwistle.
Thank you, Ms Furness, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. I thank my honourable friend, the member for Aylesbury, for securing this crucial debate, and I'm truly sorry to hear of her loss. For too long, mothers' mental health has been dismissed. Women raising concerns are belittled, told they have baby blues when they're battling postnatal depression or even PTSD. This is personal for me. After my son's birth, I requested a debrief, a simple conversation to process my own experience. My son turns 3 this year and I'm still waiting. For doctors and midwives, it might be their 1000th birth, but for the mother it can be traumatic, particularly if it's their first. Reports by the Care Quality Commission show 1 in 3 mothers are denied pain relief, with some told to suck it up when they ask for help. That is misogyny, not medicine. And as a member of the Women and Equalities Committee, I am proud to have played a part in highlighting some of the medical misogyny women experience with the publication of our most recent report. I thank the Honourable Member for Aylesbury also for referring to postpartum psychosis, a severe but treatable illness that affects over 1,200 mothers a year. I'm also proud that Amy Rothwell of Bolton Maternity Voices is working with Bolton Hospital to ensure patient feedback drives real improvements. And I urge the Minister to make maternal mental health in Bolton and around the country a priority. No mother should feel ignored or alone, and we really need urgent change. Thank you.
Respond.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair, and it's a pleasure to serve under your chairship. I'm so grateful to my honourable friend, the member for Aylesbury, for securing this debate and for raising a number of really important issues and for making such a powerful and moving contribution. I was really saddened to hear of the utterly heartbreaking circumstances of her friend's passing. And I'd like to offer my sincere condolences to her and to Sophie's family and loved ones. I'm also very thankful to all of the members for their contributions today. I think the sheer number of which, in a very short Westminster Hall debate, illustrate the vital importance of this issue. The government takes this matter extremely seriously, which is why we're taking a renewed focus on mental health and suicide prevention, including for women during the perinatal period. Looking at the figures, the challenges are sobering, and many of the issues raised today are symptomatic of an NHS that is simply not addressing the needs. Perinatal mental illness affects over 1/4 of new and expectant mothers and covers a wide range of conditions. Research shows that in the UK, around 1 in 3 women experience traumatic births, and 1 in 20 women develop post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, every year after giving birth. Between 2021 and 2023, 26 women died from mental health-related causes within 6 weeks following pregnancy. Over 1/3 of maternal deaths occurring between 6 weeks and 1 year after the end of pregnancy are from suicide or drugs, alcohol, or other mental health-related causes. It is unacceptable that so many maternal women are not receiving the mental health care they need, and we are determined to change that. That's why NHS England's 3-year delivery plan for maternity and neonatal services commits to offering all women a personalised care and support plan, considering physical health, mental health and social complexities, with an updated risk assessment at every contact. 10 years ago, fewer than 15% of localities provided specialist perinatal mental health services for women with complex or severe conditions at the full recommended in NICE guidance, and more than 40% provided no service at all. But today, specialist perinatal mental health services are available in all 42 integrated care systems across England. These services are available for women with at risk of mental health conditions, who are planning a pregnancy, pregnant or have a baby up to 2 years old. This care includes increased access to evidence-based psychological therapies. A record 62,723 women were reported to have accessed community perinatal mental health services and maternal mental health services in the 12 months to the end of November 2024. Women can be referred to services by any healthcare professional, including midwives, health visitors, GPs, hospital-based teams, mental health services and social workers. Self-referrals are accepted by some services. GPs also now deliver 6 to 8 week postnatal consultations that include a focus on perinatal mental health. The services are provided by multidisciplinary teams to cover every aspect of women's health, often including a psychiatrist, nurses, mental health social workers, occupational health workers, health visitors, peer support workers, and nursery nurses. The specialist perinatal mental health community workforce has almost doubled in the last 5 years. Furthermore, 165 mother and baby unit beds have now been commissioned, 153 of which are currently operational. Mother and baby units provide inpatient care to women who experience severe mental health difficulties during and after pregnancy. Where a mother goes through the heartbreak of losing her baby, we must do everything we can to support her through bereavement. Many trusts have specialist bereavement midwives who are trained to care for and support parents and families who have suffered the loss of their baby. All trusts in England are signed up to the National Bereavement Care Pathway, which covers a range of circumstances of baby loss with the aim of offering every bereaved parent the high-quality, safe and sensitive care they deserve. In October, the government extended the Baby Loss Certificate service to help mums and dads who go through the nightmare of a pregnancy loss. In addition, health visiting teams are well placed to provide mental health support to new parents. They can offer assessment at each contact, appropriate interventions and referrals when necessary. Some areas have health visitors who specialise in perinatal mental health to strengthen provision for families who need this. However, we know that service provision can and must be made stronger. That is why we're working with partners to improve current health visiting services, including looking at how we can best improve support for parental mental health, but also to ensure that this is sustainable for an overstretched workforce. This government wants every child to have the very best start in life. Last month, we announced £126 million of funding until 2026 through the Family Hubs and Start for Life programme. This will provide a raft of support to families with babies from pregnancy up to the age of 2. It includes funding for bespoke support for parents and carers with perinatal mental health difficulties and parent-infant relationships. This government is committed to tackling suicide as one of the biggest killers in this country. My honourable friend makes a very good point about building awareness and good allyship in order to reduce suicide risk. The suicide prevention strategy targets pregnant women and new mothers as a priority group for additional support, so fewer loved ones will go through the heartbreak of losing a friend or relative to suicide. Over 100 measures have been outlined in the strategy aimed at saving lives, providing early intervention and supporting anyone going through the trauma of a crisis. The VCSE Health and Wellbeing Alliance, managed by DHSC, NHS England and UK Health Security Agency, has sponsored a project being led by the Tommies and Sands Maternity Consortium, which explore experiences of perinatal suicide, self-harm and their risk factors. 79 organisations up and down the country have been allocated funding from our £10 million Suicide Prevention Fund over the 2 years to March 2025. These organisations, many of them grassroots and community-led, are delivering a broad and diverse range of activity that will prevent suicide and help save lives. I'd like to just finish then by saying that I've taken careful note of my honourable friend's 4 proposals that she set out so clearly in her speech, and I'll be working with my officials to give these the detailed consideration that they deserve. While it takes huge courage to speak out about such painful matters in public, I've always thought that that's such a vitally important part of our public discourse, and that is enriched when we bring our experiences to these debates. So I'd like to thank and pay tribute to her again, and to all honourable members who've taken part in this debate today. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The question is that this House has considered maternal mental health. As many as are of that opinion say aye. On the contrary, no. I think the ayes have it. Order, order. The sitting is suspended until 2:30.